my name is Martin Thompson from the ITAM Review, and I wanted to share some very interesting things we learnt at our IBM and SAP seminar this week, and also give you an update on where we are with the campaign for licensing. So just some metrics, some things we learnt this week, which I thought were really interesting. IBM's compliance revenue represents 25 to 28% of software revenue. That's a huge amount to be dependent on audits. That came from a gentleman from Origina, and Origina are to IBM what Rimini Street are to Oracle and SAP. On a similar line, Mark Bartrick from Forrester told us that 22% of SAP's revenue comes from license audits, and that allowing for euro fluctuations, the currency fluctuations, SAP's revenue was actually down 2% last year. So that's a sorry state of affairs for those software vendors. So let's put that in context. Imagine let's step outside of software for a second. Imagine if you owned a car hire firm and revenue was down 2% for the year, and 22% of your revenue came from penalties that you were inflicting on your customers. And most of the customers didn't really know what the penalties were for, or why they were being penalised. Does that sound like a solid business that you'd want to invest in? No, not really. So I think these publishers, I think, are in trouble. Not only are audits a fact of life, and they're very sales driven. It's all about the revenue. It's not about compliance. It's about driving revenue. But it's actually a substantial part of their revenue for the whole company. So things are not going to get any better anytime soon. The gem for me this week that really struck a chord, and this sort of emphasises how serious and how frequent audits have become, is, and this came from an ex-SAP employee. He said that the guy or girl with the biggest sales target in SAP is an auditor. So, audits are sales driven. The auditors and the audit teams they need to justify their existence, and that's by revenue. They're not targeted by reducing the compliance levels. They're targeted by delivering revenue. And the person with the biggest sales target on his head is actually an auditor. Now that's a sorry state of affairs for a software company, but that's a fact of life, and that just shows you how serious and how prevalent audits have become. So audits are clearly a big chunk of revenue for these guys, and they're not going away anytime soon. So what can you do about it? Well, as I see it, you've got three options. You can hire a specialist, so just like you would with a tax advisor, you can hire a specialist to actually help you navigate the right choices and navigate the right path. You can learn about the intricacies of these licensing vendors yourself, or you can change the agreement. And this is what we're trying to achieve with our events, is to get all this information about what the vendors are up to and their tactics out in the open between peers. So we've done Oracle in London, we've done IBM and SAP in London, and we'll be bringing a Microsoft Licensing Summit to London in September of this year. And we're also bringing the whole show across to the US. So if you're a US-based reader, we're covering IBM and SAP in mid-May. We're also covering Oracle in May. And we'll bring a Microsoft Licensing Summit to the US in October. So all of these events are about sharing this knowledge, sharing tactics in a non-threatening, independent environment. So come along and learn from your peers. So just a quick update in terms of the campaign for clear licensing. We've been collecting feedback from customers over the last 12 to 18 months on activity in the market and behaviour during audits and issues around licensing for these large vendors. And the first vendor we approached with this intel was Oracle, and they nodded politely and then have chosen not to do anything about it. And if you're pragmatic about it, why would they do anything about it? We heard back in March that, and this was from an ex-Oracle LMS employee, that 50% of UK Oracle database revenue came from audit activity. And that is a figure that's, the revenue figure for Oracle databases is not growing hugely. So if you're pragmatic about it, why on earth would Oracle help their customers understand their license agreements and therefore reduce that that audit figure. I mean, that's not, Oracle is not a hugely growing business. Why on earth would they want to help their customers to reduce their annual revenue? However, we have given them right of reply. We've given them full access to the data we've collected. Our next step with the campaign is actually to present our findings to the European Commission and actually suggest improvements around the software market. And there's a number of angles with this. You could argue about anti-competitive behaviour. You could argue about manipulation in the market. But the key thing, I think, for me is actually around it's a weights and measures issue. I don't think you can't be caught and fined for speeding down a motorway if the speed limit's not been defined. You can't go into a shop and buy a kilo of bananas if nobody knows what a kilo is. It's a weights and measures issue. People are being fined via audits for metrics which have not been defined or identified, not only in the contracts but just in the market as a whole. And I think that's the first step for us, is actually to look at the audit activity and how those are actually quantified. Please come and join us at these events, share your experiences, share your knowledge, and actually learn about how to navigate this greyness to your advantage. Thanks for your time.